I swear we all be famous, famous for all the right reasons. With love that we are given, you know this ain't no treason. That being this is treasure that we are receiving. I swear we all be famous, famous for all the right reasons. Being this is treasure that we are receiving.
Because when you have negative statements that you tell yourself repeatedly, as I said, that takes away your agency.
Yes.
Your own power.
You feel powerless.
Yes, but the thing is, then when you're beating up yourself, and you're typically the most critical person of yourself than anyone you know, then you look through the lens of being critical to everyone else.
Interesting.
Yes.
So when we are critical of ourselves, does that support us in creating great relationships with others?
No, oftentimes it's very damaging, because you're always thinking of, oh, well, they're going to cheat on me, they're going to lie, because you're telling yourself these types of narratives.
Wow.
And so it's hard to be authentic.
When you're critical of self.
Yes, and this goes back to a whole nother discussion, if you will, about if you look at the blue zones as an example. Obviously we're jumping around all over the place here, but
Loma Linda's right down the street, an hour away, one of the blue zones.
Yes, of course. But if you look at the blue zones, or you look at the work of the Harvard Longevity or Adult Development Study, it's called.
Yeah.
But this is the work of Robert Waldinger. Centuries ago, when we lived in villages, we were born there. We had a community that, even with our flaws, still loved us and watched out for us and taught us lessons. We had our parents, our siblings, our grandparents in proximity to us. And the very nature of that, actually, you don't have that negative dialogue going on, okay? It is the negative dialogue that's extraordinarily unhealthy, because you see, when you're always stressed and anxious and negative towards yourself, well, what does this do? This stimulates your sympathetic nervous system, which then does what? It results in the production of inflammatory proteins, which of course are associated with chronic disease states. It depresses your immune system. It increases the levels of stress hormones like cortisol, which on a chronic basis are very bad for you. Your cardiac function's impaired, your blood pressure's increased. So all these negative aspects are activated when you're constantly hypercritical.
Wow.
Right? And then you don't feel that good.
Right. You feel tired, you feel exhausted, drained.
And the other aspect is, as an example with my own parents, I used to have a sense that it wasn't that I wasn't loved, but I was ignored. I couldn't understand why they would do these actions. And I was angry all the time. And when I changed how I looked at the world, it made me much more sympathetic and kind, because I realized everyone is suffering on some level. And the issue wasn't that they didn't care. The issue was they had not had tools to help themselves.
To heal, to process, to regulate. Yeah.
Exactly. And so, you know, I'm sure you've known people, you watch them go through their lives and they constantly struggle because no one has ever shown them a different way. And that's the only way. And sometimes, I think you're probably thinking, yes, I've showed them 1,000 times, they don't listen.
They're not willing.
Yes,
they've got to be willing to apply,
well,
right?
It's back to the question of the teacher.
if they're ready to, yeah.
Yes. But the reason I was saying that, though, is that in many ways sets the stage for how you're going to respond. So this interaction with this woman, I was able to self-regulate.
She taught you skills.
Yes, she taught me a mindfulness practice.
And you were ready for it.
Exactly. And so I realized once I was able to relax, once I was able to be present and attend, because you can't learn anything or change if your mind's always somewhere, right? In my example, growing up, you know, I never knew it was going to happen. So I'm always worried about something happening to me. But the action is here between you and I. It's not about possibilities. And this also limits people's power, right? Because if you can't focus and attend, you can't accomplish, right? And if you're always distracted, it's not possible. So she taught me to relax. She taught me to be present. And then strange things happen, because you're feeling a different type of energy coming from others and yourself. And that energy has an influence. As an example, I'm sure that you've seen the situation where you get a bad vibe from somebody on the street and you cross the street.
Yeah.
Well, and you are picking up something on an intuitive level. But the thing is, if you have anger and hostility yourself, you are emanating that to other people. And what I tell people is when I changed how I looked at myself, it changed how I looked at the world, and that changed how the world reacted to me.
How the world looked at you as well.
Exactly. So after this period of time with this woman, I was much more open, I was thoughtful, I was generous, I was kind, and because I understood I had been in pain and was in pain, but so were other people. So it changed how I looked at them.
Wow.
And I think that's a very critical aspect of sort of maturing and sort of being on a path of self-development.
That's beautiful. What would you say then is what is the number one thought and number one emotion that blocks us from the ability to manifest greater?
Fear.
What type of fear?
Well, it's insecurity, it's shame, and this results in you limiting your beliefs. And so in some ways, what we're talking about here actually is a decision between fear and love, right? And when you're fearful, this stimulates your sympathetic nervous system with all the negative aspects of it. When you love, you're open, you're generous, you're thoughtful, you're kind, because you've engaged the parasympathetic nervous system. And you have a choice. This is like if you look at Stoic philosophers, like somebody like Epictetus, who was a slave. He says, I cannot control my external environment. What I can control is how I react to my environment, right? So you meet people, I'm sure, say, my life's miserable, my life's horrible. While you meet other people go, well, it's tough right now, but I'm optimistic it's going to get better. Or I know if I do this, it's going to get better. These are completely oppositional attitudes that have a profound effect depending on what you're believing.
Yes. But how does someone shift their attitude into positive when they're in a suffering state and they feel like they're a victim to so many different things happening to them?
Sure. Well, I can't sit here and say, you do this and your life's going to be perfect. There's some situations, either because of, as an example, structural racism that's built into the system, or chronic poverty, because throughout the world, and even in America, the ability to overcome poverty, for most, it's highly unlikely that's going to happen. So, yes, you do have power, but it's not necessarily, I'm going to change it and everything's going to be perfect for me. And I'm sure things are not perfect for you, right?
Yeah.
And no matter how much you try or want, well, externally things may look fantastic. It's not perfect.
Sure.
And it's not the way you necessarily want. And I have to say the same thing. But there are people who, no matter how hard they're going to work, it's going to be very challenging. That being said, what we do know is there's certain practices and rules, and if you are going to get out of something, or if you are going to change things, then the best way to do that, which has the highest likelihood of success, is to go through some of the things that we're talking about here. And one of those is that, as an example, there is a tendency for us to want to achieve, right? And if you're an athlete, you have a goal you set there. Well, goals are fine, but if you focus only on the goal and have no concern about any of the other things that are going on,
the process,
then you reach the goal and there's nothing there.
Yeah.
Yet what we do know, the greatest cause of suffering is what? It's attachment and craving.
Desires.
Yeah. And the thing is, when that is your absolute focus, and we can't all get these things, you're going to be highly disappointed, and you've ignored all the people in your life as you focus solely on that. And unfortunately, many people learn that lesson far along after they've destroyed their families. They've been through multiple marriages. Their kids don't like them, right?
Because they've been chasing a result or a goal or a dream, but neglecting everything else.
Yeah, because again, as I was saying even about myself, I thought, well, if I just do this, you know, my shame and insecurity will go away. I'll be loved by everybody and my life will be perfect. Yet at every one of those peaks, all I had was disappointment. And while everyone told me life was great, I did not feel that inside because I had not understood that I was the only one who had the key to the self-created prison. And until you realize that, you're on a very difficult path.